The Early Weigh-In podcast is back. We're back at the UFC Apex this weekend for UFC Vegas 95. Some heavyweights going at it in a rematch in our main event. We got Marcin Tybura taking on Sergey Spivak. Only a total of 10 fights, man. Not the best fight card the UFC's given us, but a lot of times what I've kind of called on to is they typically do this to us when we've got a massive pay-per-view coming up like we do next week. So won't waste too much time. Mixed bag of results, but you were able to climb out of a hole last week. Let you recap that, man. We'll jump into these 10 fights real fast.
Yeah, we're both kind of in a slump right now, but you managed to come out relatively unscathed. You had 2 straight bets. They were both plus money. Marlon Vera over Davison Figueiredo. I think we were both on that one. And 2.5 minutes more if Marlon Vera didn't get knocked down in round 3. I think that we probably get that nod there. And I'm definitely not upset with the dog shot there. Marlon Vera, first time getting dropped in 24 fights. It's hard to predict that. Rolando Bedoya versus Jai Herbert. I don't know. Herbert, his chin looks okay. That's kind of what I took away from it, is that he's maybe got a bad rap after getting knocked out by Ilia Topuria, but his chin looks okay. Still close fight, 29-28. Let's see, you had the parlay for 2 units. Your biggest play of the night did hit. You had Sharabutin Magomedov, and the fight starts round 3 in the Godinez versus Mackenzie Dern fight. It was -125. You hit it for 2 units. And then we both were on the unders in the Dumas versus Tulilin fight and the Olajaychik versus Magomedov fights. Both those ended up going to decision. So I guess that was bad play on our part, but it was tough to call. I thought that there was a lot of finishing upside. It just didn't look like Dumas wanted to get a finish. And I don't think Sharabutin is all that good. That's kind of the takeaway after that fight.
Right.
Then you took a little stab on submission parlay. You ended up the night only -1.5 units. Certainly not terrible. And then looking over at my card, I took a 2-unit shot. That was my biggest play of the night on Marlon Vera. That did not hit. We talked about the under parlay in the Dumas and the Olajaychik fights. That did not hit. I had the fight goes to decision parlayed in the Kutat Taladze Vucinic and the Bedoya Herbert fight. That was tight butthole the entire time, dude. It's an awful one to make, and I hate playing it. Like, it ruins the fights for me, but plus 187, I think it was the right bet even after the fights played out. Had to deal with a couple of knockdowns, but pretty durable guys. Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chiesa. Fight doesn't go the distance at -130. Probably should have hit that for 4 units, man. Like, I was really tempted to play fight ends by submission at even money, but I thought the fight doesn't go the distance at -130. It's tough to get greedy on that. Right. And then Dern by decision. Just thought the price was off. I talked with you about it earlier. Dern having the decision win over Verna Jandaroba kind of, pushed me into making that bet. And I think it was the right call, even though it was a really close fight. Plus 1.75 units, and looking to carry that over into this week, where we start off a pretty weak card. In the strawweight division, a rematch between Stephanie Luciano taking on Talita Alencar. This is a tough one because this is an obvious dog or pass spot in my eyes. That being said, it's a really low level fight, and even though Alencar will probably win minutes if she's able to get this fight to the ground, we have seen her in their first fight dead to rights at the end of the 3rd round, hanging on for dear life, and that's just tough optically to want to back a fighter who's already been through that in their first fight. I do think that she's going to have a significant grappling upside, and if she is able to land those takedowns, she should win 2 out of the 3 rounds. I think that she should be the favorite, or at minimum a pick'em fight. So she's who I'm going with. But as the line continues to get closer to even money, I think it's just a layaway fight for me, and hopefully some better spots on the card. Talita Alencar by decision is how I see this fight going.
Yeah, I don't really want to force anything on a low-level card, but very, very similar thoughts, man. Dog or pass, would likely find myself from the Talita Alencar fight on the Talita Alencar side. what's more likely to me is we've seen Talita Alencar now with the UFC debut underneath her belt, maybe not have the same adrenaline dump that she had on the Contender Series. I see it way more likely that she has a better gas tank than I do Stephanie Luciano being able to patch those grappling holes in just a short time that she's had. Alencar has shown me that she can win 2 rounds, clearly in this fight. How often do you get 10-8s in women's fights? I don't know, man. Yeah, it's clearly dog or pass. I really want to play the Talita Alencar side, but it is a very low-level fight. You mentioned the sickness that you see Stephanie Luciano pull from as well, and it's like, well, that's time that she's not training to get better on the mat either. So I don't know. It's tempting. It's very tempting, but try not to force things, man. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, Luciano only being 24 years old, she's still got a ton to learn, and she hasn't had the opportunity to advance since their last fight. That was her last opponent, where Alencar has at least had another win in the UFC since then. And at 33 years old, you got to think that she has more than enough combat experience to put together a game plan where she can extend her gas tank and kind of win out these rounds. So I'm glad that we're both on it. More that we talk about it, I think that we might both end up on her by the end of the week.
Nice to start the fight card off a little bit,
Yeah.
Get things grooving right out the gates. Moving up to 145, Jarno, Errens, Youssef, Zalal. I know you bet Jarno, Errens, and I think all 3 of his UFC fights so far. Finally got one back for you this last time, so coming off a win. Dude fights hard. He's a easy guy to back at plus money because I think he's going to fight for your dollar. He's comfortable in the pocket, pretty slick submission game as well. I just think Youssef Zalal is just a little bit probably better, a little bit more finessey everywhere this fight could go. I think his cardio is a little bit more proven. Volume's a little bit more proven. He's got really good leg kicks that Jarno's shown to struggle with in the past. Significantly, though, I think Zalal could find success getting this fight to the ground. Whether he's going to find the submission, I don't really know. Errens, like I said, pretty slick submission artist himself, but I just see Zalal doing a little bit too much, just kind of out hustling Jarno and probably getting a pretty clear decision win. So on the Youssef Zalal side, it's like minus 475. I don't think there's any value on it at all, but that's who I think is winning this fight.
So, yeah, I'd have to agree. I'm leaning the Youssef Zalal side for sure. To cover that price tag, I think he does have to go out there and finish Jarno Errens, who I would agree is kind of shown to be one-dimensional in the UFC. He does like to stand and bang, and I really doubt that Zalal is going to give him the fight that he wants. If he gets it to the ground, I do think that he's slick enough to probably find that finish. And in the off chance he does want to stand and bang with Jarno Errens, I think that there's a lot of potential for Jarno to find a knockout as well, as he does carry some pretty big power at 145 pounds. The under is plus 180, I think. And, like I said, if Zalal's going to cover that price tag, the under 2.5 hits, and with there being some potential on the other side as well, I think that it's enough for me to get on that, especially at plus money. Plus 180, I'm not sure what that is. I think that's like 40%, I don't know, something like that. Maybe 38%, something like that. And I think it finishes 50% of the time. So it's going to be a play for me for sure. Even though featherweights aren't really notorious for getting that finish, I think that I have to play it here. Yeah. Moving up to the heavyweight division, Karl Williams taking on Jhonata Diniz. Diniz 7-0, little bit untested. All of his wins by knockout. We've seen him kind of exposed in his last fight against Austin Lane, who had some success early on, but every round starts on its feet, and Diniz has some really good hands. Karl Williams, it's, no question what he's looking for here. I think all of his UFC wins, even the Contender Series win, is all decisions. He's wanting to ground his opponents and earn some top control time. This is a fight where I feel like the UFC would love for Diniz to win, but it's a bad stylistic matchup. I think Williams is the rightful favorite, but it'll probably take a clean 15 minutes, which is not something I want to pay the juice for with low-level heavyweights. So it's a layoff fight for me. I do agree that Karl Williams should be the favorite, but not a style that I want to back at 265 pounds.
I'm with you, man. Karl, rightful favorite here to me. As I look through the card, probably the clearest path to victory that anybody has on this card, man. Jhonata Diniz got his first knockout outside of the first round last time out. And, even then I thought he was significantly slower in the second round. I think he capitalized on Austin Lane having nothing left in the gas tank come round 2. And, man, just seeing someone on the level of Austin Lane being able to take him down, and Diniz is a guy who has nothing off his back. I think Karl's going to find takedowns pretty easy here, man. Pretty significant speed advantage, athleticism advantage. I personally think that his first finish is going to happen this week. I know DraftKings has the submission at plus 900. I'm hoping FanDuel has something maybe north of 1,000 that I can hit. But when the guy's got, I have it written down here, 3 UFC fights, 16 takedowns, 23 minutes of control time. Like, if you're going to get that on a guy who has the skill level of Jhonata Diniz off his back, I think the submission is going to have plenty of opportunities to hit. Maybe nothing fancy, rear naked choke, arm triangle. These are some big boys, but Karl Williams, I think, might find the submission this week, something I might take a stab on. But, yeah, I think it's just got one of the more clear path to victories of a fight we've seen in a while. Playing with fire, though, anytime he's staying in that range with Jhonata Diniz. We move down, up the card, down a couple weight classes. Karol Rosa taking on Pannie Kianzad at women's bantamweight. I don't want to spend too much time on this one, man. It's probably going to decision. Probably won't be the most, great fight to watch. But I think Karol Rosa is the right side for sure. I think if anyone has takedown upside, I feel like it's her. She's clearly got the volume edge. I don't think Pannie is going to do enough big moments to steal anything here. So I like Karol Rosa. Probably would never get to laying the chalk, but I think she's a rightful favorite. Probably wins a pretty clean decision.
Yeah, I think that she's in a better point in her career. Neither one of them are going to fight for the belt, but as far as who I think edges out this lower level women's fight, I got to give it to Karol Rosa. She's minus 200. Certainly wouldn't touch that. If I were going to play her, it'd be Rosa by decision. She's looking like you're still having to pay juice for that. I'm not on board. So if I could get plus 100 Rosa by decision, I think that's a plus EV play, but that's not available. So Rosa's the pick. Laying off is the actual play, though. Let's see. Moving up the card. At the bantamweight division, Charalampos, Grigoriou taking on Toshiomi, Kazama. Neither one of these guys are very good. Kazama, maybe a product of road to UFC. They needed some people to, from that part of the world to get into the UFC. I'm not really sure. I don't think that he's UFC caliber. We've seen that in his last 2 fights. He's up against Grigoriou, who, outside of the people that he trains with, I don't think he's exactly UFC caliber as well. He seems to be a little bit TKO or bust, and turns out he's going to have quite the opportunity here against Kazama, who's been finished in his last 3 of 4 fights, all by knockout. This does seem like a KO or bust for Grigoriou, because if this does turn into a wrestling match, I probably favor Kazama. That being said, Grigoriou training with Merab Dvalishvili, he's probably getting decent looks when it comes to the wrestling. I favor him. I just don't want to lay this price tag on him. So it's a layoff spot for me. If I was going to play Charalampos, I'd play his TKO at like plus 110.
I can't remember who I saw say it this week. Somebody said Kazama is an Instagram fighter. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think this guy's a showboat for the Asian scene online and is not a real fighter, man. I don't even think this guy's UFC level whatsoever, and that's just my honest opinion about him. He would whoop my ass, but I don't think he's UFC level at all. Been KO'd in like 3 of his last 4 fights, and that's exactly what I think is going to happen here. I think Charalampos, clear favorite on the feet, should light him up early in this fight. I'm not necessarily sold on his gas tank of Grigoriou, but always room for improvements. Getting some of these, experience in the cage. Got to go a full 3 rounds with a veteran of the sport last time out. Can only expect improvements from him. And again, I think very little of Kazama. I got Grigoriou to likely finish him within the first round of this fight. So first leg of the parlay is Charalampos for your boy. Moving up the card, back to the women's bantamweight division. Absolutely kicking the main card off with a killer fight, man. Yana Santos versus Chelsea Chandler. Another one where it's probably going to go decision. So you typically would want, the plus money ticket, but I like the Yana Santos side this week, man. I think experience is going to play a big factor in this fight. I think they both fight very, very similar as well and try to get in the clinch and use their physicality. And it's just hard for me to see a lot of girls, especially someone on the level of Chelsea Chandler, having the success in the clinch against Yana Santos. Competition level is night and day, double the fights. Again, man, I think there's a lot that Yana can lean on in this fight when it comes to her experience. And I just kind of see her using her veteran savviness, maybe landing some takedowns late in some rounds or something. See her clawing her way out with a close decision. So it's Yana Santos for me. If the line was flipped, I'd bet Santos at plus money all day, but just not really in the business of laying chalk on her at this point in her career. Couple losses, finished losses, post-baby, all those kind of things. Couple red flags that just tell me it's not the smartest play to make this week, but Yana Santos is the side for me.
Yeah, I see a lot of people, saying that Chelsea Chandler is going to be huge and she's going to be able to use her size against Yana Santos. If she does make weight, I think that she's going to really hurt herself trying to do that. I don't think that she's going to be top tier I say top tier, but I just don't think that she's going to be performing at her highest caliber like she does at 145 pounds. I look at Yana Santos after having the kid. Right now, she's on whatever juice Thiago Santos was in 2017. She's absolutely yoked. And, just looking at her career, the win over Ketlin Vieira speaks volumes because that could never happen in Chelsea Chandler's career. I don't think that that's a possibility in any way, shape, or form that Chelsea Chandler edges out a win over Ketlin Vieira.
It's not even close.
Yeah, not even close. And so if Yana Santos is even half of what she has been in the past, I think that there's a lot of potential that she completely outclasses Chandler here. I've heard Chandler's going to push her up against the cage. And, thinking back on it, that's kind of been Yana Santos's bread and butter for the last decade in the UFC. I really feel like she's getting disrespected because of her recent losses to some tough level competitions, and they're close fights. And, on top of that, she, having a lot of life changes. It seems like she's finally, refocused her life for MMA. And shoot, I think that if she's 100% both feet into this game, she is worlds better than Chelsea Chandler could ever hope to be. So it's I don't know. I talked to you earlier. No, I don't want to lay juice on Yana Santos, but if I parlay her with Danny Barlow and get plus money, I'm not upset with that. I feel like that's a decent play because we'll talk about it, but I think, I think that hits right there. Moving up the card, a fight that got scrapped together last minute. It was supposed to be Chris Gutierrez taking on Javid Basharat. Javid pulled out, so they have replaced him with Contender Series debutante Kang Lee. He was scheduled to fight on the Contender Series 2 weeks from now. They moved him up. He's 8-0, fighting out of, I believe, is it China? No, Vietnam. Fighting out of Vietnam. He's 8-0. I watched a little bit of his tape. He looks good, but he's facing absolute tomato cans. The odds makers are certainly not giving him much of a chance here. Chris Gutierrez has become the biggest favorite on the card. I think it's pretty neck and neck between him and Youssef Zalal, but he's become a huge favorite here. And it's a weird one for me, because Chris Gutierrez was essentially being brought on this card originally to be the step-up fight for Javid Basharat to kind of showcase him in a co-main event slot. And now Chris Gutierrez is the -400 favorite. It's it's tough to kind of switch around. Even in Chris Gutierrez's head, I'm wondering what he's thinking. I mean, he was coming in as had nothing to lose underdog to supposed to wipe the floor with this guy. And, you know, there's a lot of unknowns about him. I'm positive that Chris Gutierrez hasn't had the right amount of time to prepare for a whole new fighter. So I think that there's a lot of unknowns in this fight, and Chris Gutierrez isn't necessarily a good enough fighter to be a -600 over somebody that we don't have a lot of information on. So for me, it's a layoff fight. Sure, I think Chris Gutierrez could come out here and absolutely smoke him. King Lee, from what I can tell, he'll take a shot to give a shot. And if he is able to turn it into a brawl, Chris Gutierrez isn't somebody who has he has a little bit of quit in him. So I just don't want to back him at -600.
Yeah, he's never a -600 fighter for me either. I also think that King Lee brings a lot more finishing upside and power on the feet than Javid would have ever thought to as well. So a little bit more dangerous fight for Chris Gutierrez. At the same time, you know, one thing that I was looking at is the undefeated record for King Lee. Chris Gutierrez, not really the most potent finisher. Sometimes I was like, oh, well, maybe he's just going to give this guy the vet lesson, give him his first loss by decision. King Lee has finished like 4 times as an amateur. So it's like he might have a little bit of quit in him. I don't know, man. I really haven't done any tape on the King Lee side, and seeing Chris Gutierrez at that price makes me lean dog or pass or an under 2.5 at +165. Would be how I kind of look at it. So no real thoughts from me. Need to dig into the fight if I'm going to look to lock any play in, but Chris Gutierrez is the easy side for me to lean at this point. Moving on up, 170, featured bout, Danny Barlow taking on Nikolay Veretennikov. Just the best way I can put it, man. I think Danny Barlow is a legit prospect. I really, really do. It almost, I don't know if this is the best comparison, but almost like a Jack Della Maddalena, man. I think his hands are on another level, and I think it's going to take a very dominating wrestler who can put together that wrestling for 15 minutes to beat him. Because on the feet, man, I think his striking is clean. It's fast. The left hand is one of the quickest shots, like the one that started the finishing sequence on Josh Quinlan. It's so fast, man. It's an athleticism that a lot of people can't even come close to matching. I've seen him put deep in a rear naked choke in a CFFC fight and not even remotely come close to tapping. This dude looks like he wants it. I like Danny Barlow a lot. Nikolay Veretennikov is a guy who's okay with pushing the pace and getting in your face, and I think that's going to end bad for him on Saturday. If he had any type of wrestling style to him, I think maybe he would be a live underdog, but I think he's going to get in the pocket with Danny Barlow and get knocked out, man. Left hand to God coming through on Saturday.
Yeah, so I sure hope so. You know, he's a Memphis native, Danny Barlow. It's hard not to root for the Tennessee boy. And like you said, if I was comparing Danny Barlow to somebody, it'd be Jeff Neal. Like, they have a very similar piston left hand. And
great comparison.
I feel like he's got an even better frame for the division than Jeff. This Nikolay guy, though, you know, I try and anything after a decade, I just feel like it's useless. You know, I got to look at what they've been doing the past 10 years. And in the past 10 years, he has only lost 1 fight, and it's to Michael Morales by decision. I would also expect Danny Barlow to lose to Michael Morales by decision. You know, and then outside of that, Nikolay has absolutely dominated his competition with some like legitimate wins over guys like Anthony Ivy, who we just saw get a win in PFL last week. I don't know, dude. Like, that, it does seem like an unjustified price tag, but I would have to agree with you that all the finishing upside, it's on Danny Barlow here. It seems like a setup fight for him, but there's quite a few unknowns for Nikolay to just completely count him out against somebody who is still relatively unproven in the UFC, like Danny Barlow. You know, especially if we can admit that he doesn't have the most rounded out game. Like, at the end of the day, he did get his back taken on the regional scene, and somebody with a better with better jiu-jitsu, probably does finish that fight. And now he's not coming into this one undefeated, and maybe not this same price tag. And so it's a tough one for me. While I think that he should just, walk away with this, knock him out, it's tough to justify the price tag. So, man, we keep talking about this card, and I keep on like talking myself out of these bets. I don't know. There's not a lot of spots on this card. We'll review it in a little while, but yeah, that's Danny Barlow's the play for me. I don't know if I'm going to find myself on him though. Moving up to the co-main event slot, I actually love that they placed this fight as the co-main event. It should be an absolute banger. We got Chepe Mariscal taking on Damon Jackson. I told you I thought that there were some similarities between the first fight on the card between Stephanie Luciano and Talita Alencar. We got somebody in Chepe who always pushes a pace, looks to break his opponents down the stretch. And then somebody in Damon Jackson who pushes a heavy grappling pace early and usually is able to find that submission. And then if he's not able to, he kind of tails off towards the later end of the fight. Here's another one where I feel like you got to take the dog in Damon Jackson simply if you think that he's going to be successful early. I think that there's a lot of potential that he does find some control time in those early rounds, banks those early 2 rounds, and then maybe it gets sketched towards the end. But Damon Jackson at plus 180, and then we talked about it beforehand, Damon Jackson by decision at plus 490, I think is what it's on FanDuel right now, has to be off. The over 2.5 is minus 125. Like, there's a lot of chance that Damon Jackson gets control time, and he's a plus 490, and Chepe Mariscal's a plus 165. I know that they're crediting damage over control these days, but it just seems like that line is off. So Damon Jackson by decision is how I see this fight going, and probably where I find myself at the end of the week.
I'm in a bit of a tricky spot because in our little fantasy league, I have Chepe Mariscal, and I'd love to come out of there with the Chepe +2 knockout. But brother, I can't help but agree. I think Damon Jackson's a very live dog. The more I've looked into this fight this week, I think he's super live to have grappling success. I don't necessarily think he's going to get the finish, and that's why I think your decision prop is killer. I think he's very live to win rounds 1 and 2. Not necessarily sold on the gas tank of Damon Jackson. I think that 100% swings in the favor of Chepe. So I think round 3, it could potentially get a little hairy. But the fight that I watched this week that made me was just like, holy fuck, yeah, Damon Jackson super live is Chepe Mariscal's fight with San Soriano right before the UFC. One of my bets that I screamed through the roof was the what's his name to submit San Soriano, the Greek looking dude,
It starts with a G.
Yeah, you're right.
His last name starts with a G.
I'd have to go back and look at it, but I was screaming through the roof. Bet this guy plus 1,000. He's landing takedowns like crazy, and San Soriano's getting submitted like crazy. This guy has no ground game. And the way he did Chepe, I mean, literally wrestle fucked him for almost 15 minutes. I mean, it was a wrestling clinic put on by San Soriano. And that was the fight that I was like, dude, Damon Jackson is kind of super live to win this fight. So it's dog or pass to me. I might find myself on that Damon Jackson decision line with you because I think that's way off.
Christos
Giagos. There you go. And, man, heavyweight main event rematch, Marcin Tybura, Sergey Spivak. Watching the fight back earlier this week, I didn't even remember this fight, just completely honest with you. Watching it back this week was almost like the first time I'd ever watched this fight, and was quite shocked to see that Tybura was the one landing takedowns because I kind of felt like Sergey would have a massive advantage there. And I still kind of hold that same opinion. When I look at Sergey Spivak walking into that fight, he was walking into that fight in like the low 230s or something, and now the guy's weighing in at like 250. It almost reminds me of like an O'Malley, like a Chase Hooper. You've really seen this guy go from like a 23-year-old young prospect to a full-grown man, 30 pounds heavier, clear muscle, way younger. I actually think he's got a pretty decent jab. I don't know, man. Tybura's kind of one of these guys that's never going to blow you out of the water anywhere, but he's so well-rounded and he has an above-average gas tank for the division that if you don't go out there and put him away, he's always going to make these fights close. Later they go. And so I kind of feel like the same way here. The later this goes, if it does slip over, the later rounds might try to start to swing Tybura's favor. But I do think early on Sergey Spivak might have some success. I'm on the Sergey Spivak side. I'm not going to have a bet in the main event more than likely. I kind of would have if Sergey Spivak was still around the pick'em price tag, but minus 160, minus 150s. I cap him around 55%. I don't think I could get to 60. So I don't know. If it comes down, maybe I'm forced to do something. Spivak's the pick. No bet for me in our main event, though.
Yeah, Marcin Tybura is the pick for me. They're both 8-2 since their first fight. Marcin Tybura, he's old at 38, but he's not that old for heavyweight. If there was any signs of decline, I'd be much more inclined to bet Sergey Spivak, but I don't think that I've seen it. If
he was hurt against Tuivasa and was able to fight through it,
exactly. And I mean,
one of the hardest hitters in the division.
I could see exactly that happening with Spivak here. I mean, unless you see Spivak getting the early finish, then I think you have to give it to Tybura, the guy who has got, almost twice as many fights and has been more proven. Like, I think that there is probably a ceiling that we've seen in Spivak. His I don't know. Honestly, his takedowns seem kind of elementary, like if you know how to defend his outside trip, he doesn't have many different methods to get you to the ground. I feel like he really utilizes his big frame to be able to get some of the heavyweights to the mat, and he's just kind of lucked up and getting Derek Lewis, who doesn't know how to defend a takedown, and Greg Hardy, Alexei Oleinik, Jared Vandera. Like, those are just really good matchups for somebody who is a really physical grappler like Sergey Spivak. And we've already seen it didn't work on Marcin Tybura their first fight. Like, he went 0 for whatever on takedowns. Tybura ended up getting 2 takedowns. And yeah, like I said, like, I just don't see Sergey getting the finish early. So then it must be Tybura. And the line continues to move. So I'll probably just sit on it. But the play is Tybura, man. Like, I have to, especially if it gets to plus 150, I might have a unit and a half on it, but I'll be playing it for a unit at plus 140 right now.
Different thoughts in the main event, but take it.
Yeah, we've just seen it already. It's hard. It's hard not to. It's hard not to if we've seen it already.
I feel you. See, to me, I kind of feel like we've seen the ceiling of Tybura, and it's Spivak to me, who I think could have made the more improvements throughout since their first fight. But
do you think he could beat the Marcin Tybura of 8 years ago, or whenever they fought, whatever it was?
Yeah,
like, I don't think he beats him.
I don't know. I think Spivak, like I said, like, physically has grown into himself, and he's also in Vegas with heavyweights and things in Francis. Like, he's getting big body work and stuff, and I just feel like when I look at his frame, I see a guy who's really dedicated himself to this game, put on the weight, weighing in heavier, could be the steroids, but to me, he looks like the younger guy who's made the improvements. But when you list off the competition that it's no one to really ride home about either. So I get it. And I'm with you. If we do see this slip over the 3.5 mark, 2.5 mark, I start to lean Tybura as well, man.
Real quick, going up the card, Luciano, Alencar, what you got there? What's your bet?
Alencar, money line.
I got Alencar. Yeah, Alencar, money line. Even the under, I think that's another good one. It's hard. I'm getting influenced. We got a guy. I like the under on that one. Jarno, Errens, Youssef, Zalal. I think the under in that one as well. I think we get 2 unders early in the card. What you got?
I'm gonna be passing on that fight. I don't know how Zalal's gonna get it done, so I don't want to force nothing.
You playing that Karl Williams sub?
Probably gonna play the Karl Williams sub if it's north of 1,000.
Sheesh. All right, I like it. Rosa, Kianzad, we're moving past that, right?
Yeah. Rosa, probably no bet, though. And I do have the Charalampos parlayed with Danny Barlow.
I think he gets that done. I might even find a bet on him by TKO. Yana, Santos, Chelsea, Chandler. I'm going to have to play Santos one way or another, dude.
Don't think I will, but best of luck to you. That's who I think comes out on top too. And haven't even looked at the Quang Lee side, just being honest with you. So no bet on that next fight either for me.
He doesn't seem like he's going to be able to mix it up enough to find the shot that he needs. I bet Gutierrez edges out a decision. It's not going to be minus 500 though. I really don't think so. Right. Danny Barlow versus Nikolay. After talking it over, I'm just going to lay off that fight. Nikolay getting a little disrespected for kind of being unknown and doing pretty well for the last decade.
Right hand puts you in the hospital. Left hand sends you to God. Danny Barlow, baby.
I love that. Co-main Chepe versus Damon. I got the over. I got Damon Jackson by decision. I think you play both of those. Cover your ass either way.
I will probably find myself on a Jackson money line or a Jackson decision prop by the end of the week. And then passing the main event. Had I heard you say Spivak, maybe I got talked into it, but I can't now.
No, I might play Tybura just a little bit, but not a lot.
Best of luck to you, brother. 10 fights. Not the best fight card, but it's hard for me to ever complain about getting to watch some fights on Saturday. Opportunity to make a little money on Saturday as well. So appreciate you guys all watching. 305 next week with Israel returning to fight Dricus du Plessis, man. Big fight. Excited to start looking into those. We'll see you guys next week as always.
Peace.